And my son was a specialist in the United States Army stationed at Dugway, Utah. And on the 8th of May, he went for a drive in the desert, and at around 7 p.m. on the 8th of May, he called one of his fellow soldiers to say he had run out of gas. And he gave him a general direction of where he was. They spoke on the phone for close to 4 minutes, and to this date, no evidence of my son has been turned up other than the car he was driving and the baseball cap he was wearing. The Army has put forth very little effort to find him. In the beginning, I think they spent a couple weeks with the troops that were on the post, which it's only a 32 soldier post, and that's it. So those 32 soldiers, some fire department members, and some of the security personnel went out with the county search and rescue to see if they could find him. The colonel on the base never made any attempt to contact me. I made several attempts to contact him. His name is Colonel King, and I was always told that by the Dugway Police Department that they did not have his phone number. My son Joseph had been in the Army for about 2.5 years. He served his first year in Korea at Camp Casey, which is very close to the DMZ. And it was hard for him, but he made it through it, and he got transferred to Dugway. While at Dugway, he suffered a couple hardships. He got a divorce from his wife, and his younger brother committed suicide. But he had come to terms with those items, and he was moving on with his life. Sergeant there kind of took him under his wing and found him a career path where, since he was a medic, that he could, having military experience already in the medical field, could enroll in the nursing program at Fort Sam Houston. He was really happy about that because he was kind of in a quandary as to whether he should re-enlist or not. Now he had to re-enlist for 5 years. He said, but in the long run, Dad, it'll be worth it because I'll be a nurse. I can make some good money when I get out. And everybody knows there's a huge demand for nurses. I was due to fly there on the 18th of May to help him leave that base, to help him move his belongings here to Arkansas that he didn't need before he went back to Fort Sam Houston. He was really looking forward to taking a road trip with me. So I kept my flight, went on the 18th of May. I tried to get it sooner. I just could not get a sooner flight than the 18th. My brother flew from California and met me there, and we were briefed by 18 personnel, I believe, from Fort Carson and from Dugway. And out of all those 18 military personnel, only 3 of them spoke. And they pretty much lined out a PowerPoint presentation of how they had conducted their search, but it didn't give any grid coordinates or any landmarks that we could use. My brother and I both felt a little intimidated sitting in a room with 18 military personnel surrounding us, and it's just he and I. But anyway, after I left, I stayed there for I think I stayed there for 14 days, and I searched for about 9 of those days. I did have to work on my son's vehicle to get it able to drive back here to Arkansas because I only made a one-way flight. At first, they weren't going to let me have his vehicle, and they weren't going to let me have his belongings out of his room. And I told them there was no way that I was leaving unless I took his possessions with me. They were mine. I mean, he's gone. They've admitted that, they don't know where he is. He's gone. If he's going to show up anywhere, he's going to show up at my house, but I sincerely doubt, unless he's resurrected, he's going to show up at my house. There's no doubt in my mind my son's deceased. There's no doubt in my mind my son went AWOL. I talk to my son at least every day once. Sometimes I would talk to him 15 times a day. Sometimes we'd talk at 2 in the morning. Sometimes he'd call me at 5 in the morning. It didn't matter what time of the day or night or what day of the week it was. We always talked to each other. I have had search and rescue groups, one here out of Arkansas and one out of California, that have offered their assistance. But it's hard to get them to assist me because in order for them to proceed, they need search coordinates, grid coordinates, GPS coordinates of where has been searched, so they don't waste their time searching areas that have already been searched. The Army will not give any of that information up. I sent out a freedom of information request to them, and to get all the police report and any other documentation they may have. The paragraph that I got that referred to the phone conversation that lasted almost 4 minutes was less than 400 words. And I think in 4 minutes, I think you could speak more than 400 words. And their response to that was, well, since it's an ongoing investigation, we don't have to give you everything. We have to give you what we deem as necessary for you to proceed in the manner which you want to proceed in. Not until the investigation is closed do we have to make those other documents available to you. Before I left for Utah on the 18th, I contacted Congressman Womack's office. I spoke with his secretary. She encouraged me. She said she would speak with the congressman about it, that he was a retired military man himself, had a lot of respect for the uniform, and he runs his office like a military installation, and that he would be getting on this ASAP. We did have a few phone conversations back and forth between his secretary and I. I think I spoke to the congressman once on the phone personally. Other than that, it was always his secretary I dealt with. And it came to the point where the search and rescue outfits would like to have copies of cell phone records, and my son did have a GPS he left in his car, and they wanted the GPS records. Well, in order to get those, I would have to file a subpoena. Even though I have power of attorney over my son, I had to get a subpoena. So I went to the local sheriff. I said, how do you file a subpoena? You have to go to the prosecuting attorney. I went to the prosecuting attorney, and he said, Utah is just way out of our scope. You're going to have to, find another means of filing a subpoena. I called Congressman Womack's secretary, and she said she would see if the congressman could help me. And she called me back, and she said, no, he couldn't have anything to do with that I would have to contact an attorney. So I went to a local attorney. He filed the subpoenas for me. And then the next time I called Congressman Womack's office, they could not talk to me because I had hired an attorney. And it was never said in so many words, but my attorney called and spoke with a Louis Caslow, Mr. Womack's military liaison, for approximately 2 hours, I believe, and he said everything he could, danced around the subject as much as he could, stating that they were in fear I was going to file a lawsuit against the federal government. He never came out and actually said those words, but he walked all around it. And attorneys know when people are walking around a question. And he did. And ever since then, that's all I've gotten from them is, nope, can't talk to you, you hired an attorney. I spoke with Congressman Womack locally at the Russellville High School. He was giving a speech, and I introduced myself. He didn't recognize my name, didn't recognize my son's name until I told him my son was the soldier missing in Utah. And then he said he couldn't speak to me. And I said, well, why is that? And he said, well, because you retain legal counsel, and the joint subcommittee of legal affairs says this, that, and he's stating all kinds of things that I'm just not familiar with. And I said, well, I kind of look at it this way. If the starter went out on your car and you took to a mechanic and you said, I need a new starter on my car, and he puts a starter on your car, does that make that mechanic responsible for your car forever? No. I hired a man to file some subpoenas for me. That ended the employee-employer relationship that I had with that attorney. So why is Congressman Womack not willing to even help me with this? I have no idea. And the Army has been way less than helpful. I have been told that I was not allowed to contact any of the soldiers on the base. I was not allowed to call them. I'm not allowed to be on Facebook with any personnel, even private sector personnel on Facebook. I feel like there's some kind of thing that's trying to be hidden something that they don't want let out. As to date, nobody has found any other remains of my son, and I really need some help. I really do. My wife and I just agonize over this every day. It's been going on since the 8th of May. And I always thought that the basics that they taught my son in basic training held true. No matter how long you were in the Army or no matter where you were stationed, that you were supposed to leave no man behind, that it was a brotherhood, it was a buddy system, it was all for one, one for all, not every man for himself. And I feel like that's the way they're treating my son, like they lost a hubcap off a vehicle. We could go buy a new one. So why do we need to spend all this time searching for this soldier? If anybody'd like to contact me, my name is Kevin Bushling. My phone number is 479-890-0129. Thank you.